Hey everybody, how's it going?
It's great. How are you, Trevor? Welcome.
Pretty good. Andy, you're still muted. Well, anyways, hey, while he's unmuted, Patrick, how was your week?
My week was fantastic. It's great to be back. I've been on a little hiatus for several months from
As I was
Welcome back
TETV
saying
to
when
the
I was
show.
when
as I
you're
was saying when I
muted
was muted, welcome back,
during the
Patrick.
dead air. How's everybody doing out there in TETV land?
Good. We're doing
Hold for
good.
applause.
Oh, pretty good, pretty good, pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's great to be back. We have a great topic today. I'm so excited. Personal branding. I must say, I was watching that show that you all put together last week, and I thought it was a really fantastic and informative show. I was sorry to have missed it and was not able to be a part of that due to baby stuff. But congratulations on such a great show. For those, drop it in the comment section or something. Go back and watch that. This is kind of a part two, right, Trevor?
Yeah. So the as I had said last week, the conversation with our panel of freelancers was kind of to start the dialogue of what are some of the questions and obstacles that as freelancers we're dealing with in the present job market, in how to go about looking for work, networking, and what have you. And I feel like we shared some good wisdom and advice among the entire group. But also, I feel like we still kind of left with some question marks for ourselves. So that was the idea going into now this show of having someone on as a professional who works in hiring and recruiting to actually probably get some answers to those remaining questions and some more advice, because I definitely can use some more.
Great. Well, before we jump into the show, what's the world in review in themed entertainment? Andy, take it away.
Today was the announcement of the return of the submarine voyage featuring Finding Nemo at Disneyland, California, this summer. So later this summer, we'll get the revamped version of that. Hopefully, with new projector lamps would be great, and I'm sure that that's the case. And some new characters and new effects and things like that. So it'd be cool. The arrival of the Disney Wish in Orlando or Port Canaveral for its maiden voyages, which I believe are this weekend for cast members. So that's very exciting. So yeah, it's what else was there? The announcement of Cedar Fair announcing the closing of Great America over the next 10 to 11 years or so, which is a long time, but our producer Charlie alerted me that apparently they'd sold the land and the lease is going to be up soon. So, I think we'll probably see a bunch of auctioned off coasters somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, those are interesting parks. Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
Say break out your checkbooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder
paging Jason McManus. He needs coasters for his backyard.
They'll probably end up in like Vietnam somewhere, or maybe Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I actually used to go to that park. I mean, every now and again, like I lived in Southern California, so I'd do a little coaster trip to go to Great America and then go to Vallejo, which is where they had the Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, whatever they're calling it, and they're fun parks. So that when I went there, they were actually Paramount parks still. I only have been there when they were Paramount parks, and they had all the Nickelodeon IP, and they actually had all the Top Gun and all those types of things at the time, and that was really fun. And then what's interesting about going to those is that the Great Adventure Park was actually originally Marriott's Great Adventure, and it was Marriott's Great Adventure at in actually Six Flags Great Adventure, which exists outside of Chicago. So they're very similar parks. So it's kind of like going to like a weird dream where things are similar but kind of different. They just got bought out by different companies. So our thoughts and prayers to the the employees of Six Flags Great Adventure. Exciting.
Cool, but I worked on it in 2005. I did the music and sound for the Survivor, the ride. Yeah. That big disco coaster they had with the interactivity to it, where like the stomping and the yelling and whatnot.
Great America. I keep saying Great Adventure, but Great America. Sorry about that. So with that, before we move on, just a little bit of housekeeping. I'm wearing an AOA hat. I did get one free from them. I will wear any hat anybody gives me for their company. It's free advertising. I've done a lot of great work with them for TEA and things like that. So I'm always about wearing hats. Andy and Trevor, anything else before we bring on our guest?
No, I'm pretty excited. I think we've corrected as Great America.
Yeah, Great America. I was messing that up.
Yeah, okay.
I said Great Adventure. Great Adventure does exist, but that's actually outside of New Jersey.
Yeah, because I just got a text from Damien about that. He's watching the show and is texting me.
Being fact checked in real time.
Live fact checking. Thank you, Damien.
No, who are we? Who are we?
And let's get to our show. Let's get to the guests. Let's bring on Robinette. There she is.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, Robinette. Thank you for coming on the show so much. We're really excited to talk with you today about this very interesting topic.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I was watching backstage and I could sit here and listen to you guys just gab back and forth all day, I think. So thanks again for having me.
Oh, no, that was highly unscripted. So, welcome to your TETV debut. I actually thought you'd been on the network several times, but I was mistaken. Do you want to give us a bit of a bio, who you are, what you're up to, and then we'll kind of dive into this very casual discussion about personal branding?
Yeah, great topic for today. So I'm very excited to jump into it. But just a little bit about me. I'm Robinette Eckers. I go by Robin or Robinette, so feel free to reach out to me via the usual methods on LinkedIn or at my current company, which is Animax Designs right here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been in HR actually for about 16 years. I joined the Animax team during COVID in November of 2020 as the director of HR, responsible for all things from recruiting and hiring and staffing to, just regular HR things, compensation, employee relations, making sure we have a pretty good culture. So, I've worked in many industries. And I feel like I am finally in my home industry with themed entertainment. So I absolutely love it, completely passionate about it over the last year and a half, working with amazing people like you guys, also people from Big Break Foundation like Monet. Over these last 2 years, it's just been an exciting ride doing HR, what I know, what I love. For themed entertainment, and I hope I'm here forever. So that's just a little bit about me. I am married with 2 children, originally from Arkansas. Go Razorbacks, although they lost in the national championships to Ole Miss twice. I'm very sad about that. My husband, he played for Ole Miss, so but congratulations to that team for winning it all. So in baseball, that is.
I'm very excited to have you here to learn about.
Sorry,
Trevor, go ahead.
Battle you for it. Well, I was just going to ask, because you said that you feel like themed entertainment is your home industry now. Like, what is it about it that you're like, oh, this is what feels like the right fit?
The passion of the people who have lived in this industry pretty much their whole lives, from college all the way through their careers. What I realized when I joined here in Nashville in Animax is, and I come from an industry and it's manufacturing, so I'm not throwing any shade to that industry, but I had to come up with processes and plans where I had to incentivize people just to come to work and do their jobs, where they're just building widgets. So there's nothing really exciting or motivating that just makes them want to come to work, right, outside of the paycheck that they're receiving. And I had the exact opposite experience here. And that was a first for me. It just blew my mind. I don't have to make people come to work. What is this world? I love it. And so, when you get to build something similar to what we, get to build, and you go out and you see that in an exhibition, or you see that at a museum, or you see that in a themed entertainment park, it's enlightening. It's tangible. You can go touch it. You can go see it. You can go experience it. And the people here who do this work every day, we would not be able to do what we do without them. And their passion is the one thing that by far has just blown my mind for this industry. So that's why I feel like I'm at home, because I've always felt the same way about HR, right? I know HR can sometimes not be the most fascinating industry, but I love people and I love helping people, and I've always been a people person. So to me, to marry these two, HR, what I love, what I know, and themed entertainment with such passionate, amazingly talented people has just been a dream for me. So I guess that's why I feel like I'm at home now.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to learn more about what you do and HR because like I've been freelancer my entire adult life, and I think I can count on, you know, one hand the number of months that I've worked for a company besides myself. So like the whole HR perspective of themed entertainment is sort of a black hole for me. I don't know much about it or how it works or all the nuances or anything like that. So I'm excited to learn more about that today.
Good deal.
All right. Well, Trevor, you know, you really were, this was your baby. Why don't you kick us off with some questions
Yeah.
and then we'll have a little bit of a roundtable discussion.
Well, so admittedly, in the few minutes before we started, I started kind of putting together like all the thoughts I've been kicking around in my head the last week, and I wrote down a pretty good outline here. It might be a bit ambitious to get through in the time that we have in front of us, but if we can, we'll get cracking here. So to start a little easy, kind of dip our toes in, simplest things, resume tips, you know, rules, guidelines for that. And again, this is all under the guise of like personal branding, like how to best present ourselves. So in this instance, on one sheet of physical or digital paper, what are some really good tips for resumes? And then building off that, I want to touch on also like if you're for those of us that are artists, portfolio tips, and then even personal websites that have our resumes in our portfolios.
You get one question, not 10.
No,
This is act one. I got a lot more.
I can see the wheels. And honestly, all of that kind of it goes together, especially in this industry. So it's very important. And I'm actually glad that you said that. And don't worry, I can follow. So from a resume perspective, it is it's critically important to brand yourself on your resume, right? First, you need to make sure that you know who you are, just from an overall general branding perspective. Know who you are, know who your audience is, know what you're targeting, who you're targeting, what your target audience is. Once you know those things, I feel like you will put yourself in a better position to brand your resume accordingly. And not even just your resume, but also your LinkedIn profile. Those things should be very intertwined and interchangeable, and they should have very similar information while always highlighting something new about yourself. And so when I think about the resume that catches my eye, right, it's the one that is very poignant, that is very clearly defining what it is that you're looking for, that shows me, not necessarily in a ton of detail, like I was, you know, this presenter for this company and I did XYZ. I don't need to necessarily know all those details. I need to kind of be wowed, right, as the employer from the very beginning. Like, do something catchy. Make sure you're figuring out a way to set yourself apart from everybody else, because everybody else already has those boxes that they're ticking off or checking on their resume that lists the work that they've done. But honestly, that needs to be discussed during an interview. Like, show me high level what you've done, but make sure you are branding yourselves accordingly. For example, if you are a animation technician and you've worked on many of those things before, list, you know, very high level, some of the shows that you've worked on, so that we can get into a dialogue during the interview about those things and what you're responsible for. Don't tell me exactly what you did for each day. That's not necessary. And it's no reason, you should never put that type of information on your resume. And then if you want to go past your resume and go into like your website and other things like that, that stuff should mimic what you're going to see on your LinkedIn profile and what we should have already seen on your resume. So it needs to flow very intentionally from one to the other. Again, you can go into a lot more detail on a personal website and we can actually see the work that you're doing. So make sure you are giving yourself credit for the work that you're doing and you are explaining those things and showing pictures and sharing that information. If you have a video of you producing something or walking through your process, that is always a really big like eye catcher for any recruiter or any hiring manager. If they can see the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis right there on your website, it's a no-brainer for us. And that's easy information to also share across the board, especially when you're trying to get others who may be going through that interview process with you to agree that this is the perfect candidate for the position. So all of those things need to link and be interchangeable. So,
and I'll kind of add to that a few things. I reviewed a lot of resumes, and I hate being on the full screen here. Just to have everybody else here too. I imagine what you want the person on the other side of the room to do. Sorry, am I really echoing? Let me just try to get closer to my mic here. Is that better? All right. No. Yeah, better. Okay. Let me adjust the gain. Okay. I'm gonna hunch over here. In a perfect world, you're going to get a resume, or someone's going to say, hey, I'm looking for a project manager, or I'm looking for a show producer, or I'm looking for a production designer or an artisan or whatever. And in a perfect world, somebody can really in a moment say, oh, I remember meeting, let's say, Trevor, and go to your website and pull your resume off in 2 seconds and send it. And they may even not even contact you. And so for me, I think it's really important to have all your information on your resume in regards to who are you and what are you about. So if you're applying onto a website where it's some sort of crazy AI machine, we touched on that last week, or you guys all did. But if I'm forwarding that email off to somebody and I'm saying, hey, I know Trevor, he's a great guy, here's his resume. I recommend putting some sort of a summary or an objective statement at the top of your resume that says, hey, I'm Trevor, I've done this, I've come from the world of touring performance, and now I'm doing XYZ. So that and I don't have to write some sort of preamble on my email when I send it off to a person who's looking for somebody. It's just already baked in, and that's also a way for you to express yourself a little bit. And it's not you're not writing a novel, but at least it's a little bit of like, where do you want to go? So I always tell students that as well. It's like, hey, I'm a student studying this. I'm interested in this, that, and the other. And then where do you think your career is going? Like, you can't say I want to be a creative director after a month, but you can at least say I'm kind of on this route, or I excel in this. And I've always thought that was really productive, as opposed to like a cover letter, which is a little too much, and then you have to customize for each job. So highly recommend that for your standalone. And then make sure you have your email accessible. I know that it can be kind of annoying to have your email address on your website because it gets blocked, but that happened a lot recently. I was looking for people's email address, can't find them, and people don't check their LinkedIn enough. And I will tell you, people are missing out on work by putting up too many barriers for their stuff. If you're worried about somebody hijacking your email, create an email address that's just for your website. That's info@trevor.com or whatever it is. Because it's just want to get as little friction as possible whenever anybody's trying to get a hold of you. So sorry, back to you, Robinette, if you have anything to add to that or disagree.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And just to kind of piggyback a little bit on like the summary, like you said, keep it short and sweet. Please do not add like a paragraph. Keep it very short, to the point. And honestly, it's okay to have a few versions of a resume that may have, the bulk of the same information, but maybe you're changing your summary around just a little bit, depending on the company or the role that you're trying to, attract for yourself. So keep it to 2 to 3 sentences max. And cover letters, people don't read them. So don't even go there. I don't read them. I'll be very honest. I haven't read a cover letter in I know, like Confessions of a Hiring Manager. I don't think so. No.
So it's not a bad thing to not include the optional cover letter, like on the on the websites, like on the career hubs, where a machine's reading everything. It's if it's the cover letter's optional, it's not going to be a demerit to not attach one.
I have never utilized it as a demerit, and I don't believe that those even the AI systems are programmed to remove your consideration from that. If you have some of those keywords that they're looking for through their algorithm in your resume, you will still get picked up with no problem. So,
and unless if you're going for like a show writer position, maybe so, but if not, just your resume is going to do well.
It cuts straight to the point. There's no reason for all of that.
I made all of the mistakes. So last year I applied for this job at Disney that was basically head of music for WDI and all parks and resorts around the world. And I'm one of maybe 5 or 6 people that's actually qualified to do that job. And so I don't have a traditional resume. I didn't even know where to start because like I've just done like dozens and dozens of different projects for different companies all over the world for the last 25 years. So what I did is I uploaded my 2-page list of credits and a cover letter. And I didn't get anything from anybody back from that at all. And I learned later that, yeah, that's not how you do it. And like, I didn't even get through the algorithm and the AI thing at all because my resume wasn't formatted traditionally. And, you know, my cover letter probably didn't have any of the buzzwords in it that it needed to see. So yeah, I probably didn't even get considered for that job. And I found out later. So,
Well, too bad for them, right? When it comes to that.
but yeah, like, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, I have a list of credits that's 2 pages long, and I've heard that basically your resume should be 1 page unless you're going for CEO or something like that. And, you know, I wouldn't even know where to start, you know, to like put together a resume for myself. It's just, I have my website and list of credits and like, that's it. And I wouldn't even know what to do.
You know, people say 1 page unless you're like high up, but honestly, I think for certain positions in industries, it's very custom to have multiple pages. You don't want to go past 2 though. So if you can maybe get that information on 2 pages, it is absolutely fine. I will review a 2-page resume just as easily as I will a 1-pager. So not a problem with 2 pages. And if you can figure out how to do that.
Just kind of, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And Andy, and this kind of applies to a lot of people. You know, how do I handle? I've worked on a dozen projects. I've worked on tons and tons of experiences, and how do I get that on a resume? And I can only speak to my experience of which has been successful. I don't know. Is putting a portfolio together of some sorts that at least has flashy images of all the projects you've been on, and listing your roles and what you did. For Andy, that could just be, 100 or probably your e-ticket top attractions that you've done music for, summarized on a portfolio that you submit. And then your resume can be that 1 page of, hey, did about this, did this, did this, did this, did this, and just your skill set. But yeah, it's a neat challenge. And then just, we have another question here we can bring up. If recruiters are not reading cover letters, how are you supposed to differentiate yourself and communicate who you are without a lot of experience? Does that mean you don't have experience? If you want to clarify that comment, but we'll kind of talk about that here, Robinette.
Yeah.
Over to you.
No, and I think it's kind of some of the things that we've kind of already hit on, right? And again, I'm confessing what I do. I don't read cover letters, right? That doesn't mean that every hiring manager does not read a cover letter. So if that's something that makes you feel comfortable, please continue to do that. I don't want to downplay cover letters. I just don't read them. So I'm being very honest, very transparent. But there are many ways that you can set yourself apart. And I feel like the overall conversation about branding is one of those things. When I get a really great resume, the first thing I'm going to do is go to LinkedIn, to be completely honest. I need to see if that information that I'm reading on that resume is consistent with what you're presenting socially. So I'm going to go right to LinkedIn and I'm going to review that information. And if there's discrepancies, I don't know what I'm going to do exactly. It depends on the position and the priority and all of that good stuff. But I need to see those 2 things living in the same space and marrying one another. So that's a great way to go into a lot more detail about your experience, especially if you, let's say, are a student and you've maybe only done internships or worked on specific projects. You can go into a lot of detail on LinkedIn about those projects. And you can even link your own website to those, and then that will give us another avenue to learn even more information about you. So you can create these different places. That's what I've seen that has been very successful. That's what I've done in the past for myself. So I think that's a great avenue to kind of set yourself apart.
And I'll just kind of add to that. They recover cover letters from Natalie Spencer.
A lot of them do require it. That's a great question.
And just to move on from the cover letter for just a moment, one top tip I give, especially in our creative field, is that a resume can really tell a lot about you and a little about you, just in the way that you design it, for lack of a better phrase. So if you're a graphic designer, an art director, you're any person that's on the creative side of things in architecture, I expect that your resume is going to be very well organized, and the level of organization and aesthetically pleasing goes up to a graphic designer, where your job is to convey complicated things in a very straightforward way. And I've seen graphic design resumes that are complete messes, and it's like that's your first impact on a person, is a potential hiring person for now or down the line, is how you present that information. So it's almost its own piece of art where you should go and do your design. Now, look, if you're project manager or whoever, I mean, I actually just pulled the template off of the internet. As long as it looks looks good, you can get by. But if it's disorganized, things are all over the place. You have a margin here, things are going around there. It's like, just don't get your information lost in your design. Robin, you probably experienced that because in your creative studio where you get resumes, you're like, what the heck is this?
Oh my gosh, so much. And you kind of hit the nail on the head though. If I'm looking for a creative director or a designer, I do anticipate and expect that resume to have a little bit more jazz to it, a little bit more oomph, But then when I am looking for a project manager, or I'm looking for a coordinator, or someone, a position that maybe doesn't require a hefty amount of experience, I do have a tendency to expect that to be a very simple but effective resume that I need to review. It still needs to transcribe the information and the experience that you've worked, and give me a reason to really look to see if you're someone I want to have a conversation with, I want to have a chat with. And there are different ways that you can do that. Don't get me wrong. There are these companies out there that will charge you an arm and a leg to help you to create all of these amazing resumes. And they will also do some work on your LinkedIn site. Like, you can go that route if you want. But I really feel like, especially within our industry, that you can save that money and do a lot of that legwork yourself.
Yeah.
We work in a very creative industry, and there are so many examples and samples of that already out there if you simply Google it. And so I would just encourage, especially people who are just now trying to get into the industry and may not have a ton of experience, do a little of that legwork yourself, save yourself a few dollars, and use that to leverage yourself and land yourself your first amazing career within this industry.
And just kind of start, go ahead.
Or even like throw a few bones to your graphic designer friends to help you out.
There you go.
And probably the final tip I'll give is, you might be saying, hey, I don't even know where to start with my resume. And the amount of information out there, and we'll probably touch on this later, that people have access to now is ridiculous. So you can go on LinkedIn, find somebody who's a creative director, find the person that's 10 years ahead of you, find their website, find their information, find their resume, and then just start modeling yours after where you want to go. So you're already kind of categorizing yourself in that. I started doing that a long time ago. I was like, I got my hands on a creative director's resume, and now things are much more public. That was a little bit more secretive. And you can find it on LinkedIn, people's websites, all that kind of stuff. SliceCreativeNetwork.com. You can see people's portfolios.
Yes.
Everything's public. Go ahead, Robinette.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because that made me think of another very free resource. Even just within Microsoft Word, you can say, I want to build a resume. There are templates that are right there that are completely free. You can say, I want to build a creative designer resume, and it will pull those things and give you examples of words that are being used for those successful resumes, phrases that are being used. And it's all it's free. It's literally right there. So right there in Microsoft Word, please, please, please. And just, do your research, take your time. It's okay if you get it wrong the first time. Keep trying, and you'll be able to master this in no time.
See, it's been a while for me. Does Clippy still come up and say, it looks like you're trying to do a resume?
Trevor, what do we have next?
Well, I was going to ask the last question I want to ask about that is, and this is just because this is what I'm personally dealing with right now, is how do you handle gaps in employment on a resume, especially coming out of the pandemic right now?
You're a freelancer for all that time.
Just say you were working for me. It's fine. I'll for a minute.
Robinette, sorry, go over to you.
No, that's actually not a bad suggestion, right? No, I think there's a lot of people, right, dealing with exactly that. And I believe companies have a lot of work to kind of catch up on that side of things. Companies have to be a little bit more flexible with employees, especially given the fact that we just went through the worst thing that most of us have gone through in our lives, all collectively together. And so we should anticipate that there will be gaps. and that there will be layoffs and unexplained absences from this company and that company. And so I feel like companies have a lot of work when it comes to that. But how do you, as the employee, explain it? Be honest. I can't say that enough. Just be honest. I'm not looking for the perfect person who has all the right answers to every question. I'm looking for a person who's going to be transparent, who is going to keep it real, who wants to come back and go to work. And if you simply tell me whatever happened, I'm pretty sure we will be able to work with you. And you want to make sure you are first applying to companies that are people-centric, because if they are people-centric, then they will be okay with whatever that explanation is. I've been let go from a company before, and it terrified me when it happened. This was a while ago, of course. And I was like, I'm ruined. What am I going to do? How will I explain this to my next employer? And I just told the truth about what happened. I didn't throw that company under the bus. I simply said, this is what happened. This is what I thought was going to happen, but this is the result that this happened. And my employer, my future employer at the time, was like, I appreciate that honesty. Here's an offer for a job, simply because I told the truth. So just be honest. I can't keep it simpler. I mean, that's the most simple answer I can give you for that.
That's great advice. I think one thing that's kind of weird now is just so we all know that the blip happened, is what I'm calling it, the blip in the pandemic, and everyone, entire industry basically got laid off, and now kind of things are coming back. How do you handle knowing your worth and not undervaluing yourself when, I'm making $0 today, and then a company comes at me with a lowball offer, but that's more money than I would have made not working? Anything about negotiation tactics when you're basically coming from no job to a job?
Never accept the first offer.
Never, yeah.
Never.
Never.
You should always go into the negotiation, even if it's above what you were anticipating hearing from them or what you may have listed. But let me back up. In the interview process, it is critical that you explain what your expectations are for that role. And the salary expectations. So you need to do some research before you even have your interview, especially when you're talking to someone in HR, because that question is going to come up. Every interview that I'm going through, I ask the potential candidate or potential employee, what is your expectations from a salary perspective? And a lot of times they'll counter my question with a question of their own, but well, what's the range for the position? So you have this unique back and forth dance where you're going. Know your worth before you have that interview. You don't allow the company to tell you where you need to be. You need to know where you need to be, what you need financially, whether that's salary, bonus. Put your total compensation package together for what you need, not for that company. And then be transparent and honest with them about that. And then have a real conversation, especially with the HR professional, about whether or not your range fits into the range that they have approved for this position. They should be very honest with you, and they should say it either does or it doesn't. So I would feel much better that I'm in a position where I know what to expect, so that I am armed with that. And I know if I want to continue to be considered for this position or not. So be honest. Negotiate even after you get the offer. Never accept the first offer, even if that means you're going to go back and say, well, I just need an extra week of PTO or something like that.
Right.
Like, always ask for something, because if you don't ask, you don't have it. So what's the harm in doing it? And all they can do is say, no, my offer is what it is. So, either take it or leave it. So always negotiate. Know your value going in and create your own salary range and expectation. Don't let the company decide what that needs to be for you.
Gotcha. Cool. I'm realizing now as we're about to switch to the next thing that I just remembered business cards. That's a whole other thing, but we can touch on that a little bit when we get to the networking aspect. But just like as a brief anecdote about that, I had I called somebody asking for hopefully 5 minutes of their notes on my business card, and we ended up going back and forth for a solid hour, basically redoing my entire card. And it's great with how it looks now, but that's a whole class in and of itself of how to fit everything on 3 inches by 1.5 inches. But anyway,
we have a quick question from Natalie. Robinette, can you ask for a base salary plus bonus to each reach your target?
Absolutely. I think that is a great negotiating tool because sometimes companies are set when it comes to their budget for a position, but they may have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to bonuses because typically bonuses are linked to KPIs and, like the work that's going to be done. And there's a little bit more discretion there. And it's hard to kind of solidify exactly what that's going to be. So I think that is a great question, Natalie. Thank you for asking that. Always come in with your base salary and then a bonus expectation as well. And that can definitely help you reach your goal.
Cool.
And it's also going to show that employer that you've done your research if you come in that way. So that's impressive just to have in general.
Right on. Well, now going on to the next thing and realizing that we spent as much time as we did on resume tips and such. We got no. We needed that. That was awesome. I always actually taking notes over here of things that I want to do after this conversation.
Don't worry, you can invite me here every other week.
Well, let's keep this train moving. Now this is going to get a little personal. Well, very personal. For personal branding. When it comes to something like a candidate, but then ideally even like as an employee, personal appearance. And then off of that, also just like their personality, like we were talking about in our prep meeting, like if you're someone who is an artist and you work with like sculpting foam models all the time and like you're just naturally like that, like, you can look like, a Woodstock hippie, and that's totally fine because that's your personality, that's your brand. But then also on the other side of that, like what happens when it's someone who maybe that's how they feel most comfortable, but also they need to be pulled into a client meeting. So this is the free-for-all, something that I know next to nothing about. You adults, go. I'll listen.
So I guess you guys want me to go first as the guest. So I'll be honest, and we did talk about this in our pre-meeting. I feel like companies still have a lot of work when it comes to this topic. And I feel very passionate about that. I want people to be able to come to work their most authentic selves. So if you are more comfortable in a grungy t-shirt and jeans, and you're coming in to fill a financial analyst position for me, I am going to hear you out. I'm going to look at your resume and I'm going to make my assessment from there. But don't get me wrong. It is, sometimes you're client facing or, public facing, and those things are equally important. But I think, like knowing what that line is and being receptive to any feedback around that is what's most important. Applying that feedback sometimes when needed. But I think companies have a lot of work when it comes to that. Here at Animax, we actually have a pretty general policy around personal appearance. Don't get me wrong, there are things that employees have to do, like wear safety shoes when they're working on certain areas within the facility. But we want our employees to be able to come here and be who they are. If there is something that they're passionate about, of course, this is the month of Pride. And so you walk into our shop and I love it. If you feel like you come alive here, because you'll see someone with rainbow hair or you'll see someone in suspenders that are every color of the spectrum that is out there. And we celebrate those things here. And so it's just refreshing to see. I have worked in industries where that was absolutely not the case. So you have to know your industry. You have to know the companies that you are researching and what their motto or value is around these things, so that you go in armed with that information. But again, I still feel like companies have a lot of work when it comes to those things. We try not to get into they can wear this versus that, as long as it's not offensive. And you have to be even careful with that these days, because there's a lot of stuff that is offensive that sometimes you don't know is it's kind of it's up in the air. So I feel a little different, I think, than other people in other industries when it comes to appearance. I want you to come to work and be who you're going to be, because the job that you're going to do isn't reflective in the clothes that you're wearing. And look, I'm here talking to you guys with the hair wrap, right? I want to be able to feel like I am comfortable enough to come to work with my afro out, with my dreads or my locks or my braids or my wrap. And you should still expect the amazing work that I'm going to give you in my day to day. And that should be what matters, not necessarily what outfit I'm wearing or what my hair looks like.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's just starting an internship with a big time accounting firm, multinational accounting firm. And they had a huge Zoom call with like 100 of these, young interns. And like most of the questions were about dress code. And like everyone was just one like, well, can I wear jeans and a t-shirt? Can I wear a sweatshirt? Can I wear hoodies? And like eventually like the people hosting the Zoom call were just like, oh my God, just wear whatever you want. We don't care. Just unless you're meeting with a client, just we don't care.
Right.
Yeah, I have some personal comments and thoughts about that. So I kind of went on the, I've been all around the board on that, personal appearance. Essentially, I think the best thing to think about is that, first off, when you're going to a new job, you want to get the lay of the land. I think you want to show up and never wear anything it's going to be just, no one's going to question what you're wearing. So, for when I interviewed for like the first position I had at Nickelodeon, I'm sure I wear a button up and wearing pants. I'm not overdressed. You don't want to look ridiculous. You're not showing up with a suit to a creative, position. But you're also not being disrespectful. You just blend in. No one's going to question it. And then you start to feel it out and you start to feel, okay, well, what are other people wearing? Oh, okay, this is a creative office and this person over here is wearing this person over here is wearing that. And then you just start to get the lay of the land a little bit. And I'd say, depending on what your aspirations are, start to look towards what they're wearing. And then, okay, they're wearing this and they're representing themselves like that. We could set aside client facing calls. And then as my career evolved, I definitely got the feedback, hey, you need to dress better. And I was thought I was doing that, but I wasn't doing the 3-piece this and the style and this and that, and I think who you are as a creative person, and I'm speaking from the creative side because I'm on the creative side of the industry, but it's almost like there's a lot of things that make up who you are, and being stylish and wearing the latest and greatest outfits says something about who you are, right? Dressing a little more casual makes you more approachable, makes you this, makes you that, so I think there are different elements to that. But what's going to trump, we can't even see that anymore. What's going to over escalate all those or go above those is who you are as a person and your kindness. And if you're easy to work with, are you a nice person? Are you collaborative? Because I think that no matter what you look like, let's presume you're able to put pants on. Now all bets are off. Most people are on Zoom. It's remote. It's this. It's that. Nobody knows what's going on. The bottom. But I think you want to not stand out in a bad way. But what I will also say is that I'm sure I've gone to TEA events and I've worn some sort of goofy shirt, and then people say, "Oh, hey, I love that ride," or "Oh, I love that shirt." So there's just you never really even know. So I think the best thing is to be who you are, yourself, and you're going to attract the people that you're wanting to attract anyway. In regards to that. Never be sloppy and never be too drunk at parties. Robinette, anything else about presentation?
Never be.
You might want to say that again.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's a real issue that faces our industry. You've been to the IAPAs, and that there is a lot of alcohol and things like that. Anything about that? That's all part of your personal branding.
Yes. Oh my goodness, so much about that. Oh man, I've had to counsel employees or go through many steps about exactly what you just said, which is, decorum, right? Decorum is important, and you need to be able to read the room. And that's why emotional intelligence in general is critical, right? You need to be able to kind of switch it up based on the environment that you're in at that moment. And so always think about that. And if you know people that you trust, that you can lean on and glean different things from when it comes to this, ask that person that you know and trust. Hopefully that's someone, that is close to you that will be very honest with you about certain things. But that's an avenue that is extremely important for you to understand, especially in this industry. We like to have a good time, and that is amazing and appreciated. But you have to have some good decorum overall. So please just, we can talk more about that, I think, later, but just practice good decorum when it comes to those things. That's my HR word.
To get back to the dress code thing, I think Patrick, you're talking about reading the room and figuring out who to who's dressed to maybe emulate. I was thinking like dress for the job that you want. Even if you have, you're already in the office and you already, have a job, you're, associate creative director, art director, whatever, like, what is the creative director wearing? What are the senior producers wearing? Maybe edge towards that a little bit, I would say maybe.
Yeah, I like that too. Dress for the success that you want. But put your own flair on it, right? Like still be you throughout that entire process.
See, like I dress like a serious artist, so clearly I wear all black all the time with a graphic tee.
Well, that TE is really pretty. It looks pink to me. So you can obviously do colors. What are you talking about? Look, the colors are our friends.
I have a really quick story to tell about trusted friends giving you advice on what to do and what not to do. So I know Patrick probably remembers, but Trevor probably doesn't. I used to wear these crazy boots called New Rock boots. They're like big punk rock boots. Even as like, I stopped wearing them, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the reasons I stopped was because number one, Jason McManus, and I hope he's watching because this ties directly to him. He started going around and spreading the rumor that I was actually a street fighter, and I had to wear those boots in case I randomly got into a fight with somebody, and I had to be prepared. And then also when we were at IAPA one year, he overheard some other vendors from Podunk, Idaho, or whatever, talking about me and my boots, and they were like, they're looking at one of those some kind of corrective shoes. And I was just like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not wearing those in professional settings anymore at all, even though it was part of my whole ensemble.
Well, you're like me. You're a tall guy, so we're already. Are you like 6'4", 6'5"? I forget how tall you actually are.
No, I'm like 5'11" now.
Oh,
but,
okay. And the boots, though, you're 8 feet. That's what I must be doing.
But the boots, my boots had like 4-inch platforms on them, and so it put me up at like 6'2", 6'3", like towering over most people. But that wasn't it. It was just they were so extreme and unusual, and I could play it off as like, oh, I'm a eccentric composer type or like whatever, but like that's not the kind of person a lot of like engineers and project managers and senior producers are comfortable dealing with. They want the Carl Johnsons of the world who look like they just got off the golf course.
My God.
But that's the work that we have to do as employers, and I feel like just with everything from this culture shift, right, that we're experiencing at the same time that we're experiencing this pandemic, a lot of companies are starting to like wake up to the idea that what used to be may not necessarily get us to where we need to be. And I know, I'm hoping we will continue to do some real self-reflection when it comes to that. Potential employees should also do that. Always like look within, and that's why emotional intelligence is really important, because the one thing that is consistent is that change is going to happen. And so there's a lot of work that companies have to do in order to kind of get over that hump, especially when it comes to appearances.
And I know it's not IAPA season, but I think like what's really important is like, never be the most drunk person in your group and travel in groups so that you know where you're at. Like, and you know your limits. I mean, it's it's decorum. It's wanting to know that person is able to maintain themselves. And I mean, I've gotten inebriated at every IAPA that I've been to, but you keep it together, and you don't, I mean, hopefully I don't show it. You're not like, hey, everybody, what's going on here? Right. So Trevor, what's next? We'll keep
me at the TEA Awards this year. I've actually gotten really good at keeping it together at IAPA now. I have,
by not attending,
rules for everything now, but man, the TEA, I came home with so many business cards of people I have no memory of talking to. The TEAs. But
Yeah.
like IAPA is a marathon,
Yeah.
the THEAs is a sprint.
Well, since we're talking about that, though, so I mean, moving on to even just networking. So I want to talk about like virtual networking, of course, with the different events that associations are holding, and specifically LinkedIn, like cold contacting. But since we're already talking about it, in person networking, aside from handling yourself and being in control of yourself, what else should be? Because I mean, recruiters obviously go to these mixers as well, but when we're trying to talk to people that are, colleagues, coworkers, ideally, superiors, if they were to hire us, what are just some general advice? And we've talked about this in a previous show, I want to say like a year or a year and a half ago, but just like in person as a either someone who's looking for work or has a job, and just for the, future work, what are the tips of how to handle yourself in person?
In person. So just in general, embracing networking is critical, right? Grow your network. Be intentional about doing that. Reach out to the people that you already know that are in the industry and maybe well developed on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, and try to make that connection so that when you go to the in-person event, you at least have a doorway to say, hey, we just connected on LinkedIn. Thank you for accepting my connection, and spark up a conversation. Like that's one of the best ways to like get yourself like in front of someone that maybe is a thought leader or just an overall leader within the industry that you're trying to tap into. So those connections through LinkedIn could be a real lifesaver for you. I've utilized that tool a couple times myself. Especially when I was in a place where I didn't know a lot of people. Like that was my avenue. I saw someone that I knew I was connected with, and maybe I've commented or they've maybe commented on some of my posts, and I was like, thank you for commenting. And that was my end. And then I met 4 new people that have helped kind of shift some things for me. And so you never know where that opportunity is going to come. So it's very important to put yourself out there, grow your network, and be intentional. Just overall, be intentional about it.
I had oh
sorry,
my gosh. Well, this is just a quick anecdote, and it happened last week. So I honestly felt really bad about this moment, because this is someone who was like one of the first people that I met when I was beginning to network in the industry 7.5 years ago through LinkedIn. It was somebody who worked at a previous company, and him and I got together for a coffee, and I reached out to that person several times since that date, never heard back from them. They since left that company and had gone off to another company. So I haven't spoke or actively spoken with or seen the person in 7.5 years. They're at this new company, and ran into them at an industry mixer last week. And I had separately applied to a job at that company, and then was found out that person who had gone to that company was now the person who was going to be hiring for that role. I'm talking to him completely, admittedly, like it's been a number of years. His appearance has slightly changed. And I've met hundreds of people in other areas of my life since then. He remembered me, I guess. I completely forgot that we had met, and it was just an uphill climb at that point. And I just walked away going, well, that's a job I'm not getting.
Oh, no. Well, I had a fun fact. About 85% of jobs that are filled through networking.
Yeah.
Think about it, 85%. It's all about who you know, right? So again, we can have the most amazing resume and the coolest website and LinkedIn profile, but 85% of jobs that are filled through networking. So you may have struck out then, and that's okay. But keep doing it. I promise you. Even this current company with Animax, I think the last 3 to 4 positions that I've landed, I didn't necessarily apply to a position. I was reached out to either via LinkedIn or through some type of networking event. And that's how I landed my last 3 jobs. So like it's a game changer. It really is. You have to be intentional.
I've never landed a job in this industry off of a website.
Yeah, 100% of my jobs that I've ever gotten were through recommendations.
Well, I want to give you a very specific advice that I learned a long time ago, and it stuck with me. I was working on. I was one of our old TEA events back in 2009 and 2010, Andy. And I just said, "Oh, it's nice to meet you" to somebody. And they're like, "Oh, we met last year." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, okay, sorry." I go, "Ooh, I didn't kiss the ring." Nice guy. And so from then on, I just said, "Oh, nice to see you." Because no matter what, it's always nice to see somebody.
That's what I always say too.
Yeah, I highly recommend you doing that, Trevor. With from here on out. And I've been reached. I mean, look, I'm huge on LinkedIn. I'm posting. I'm this. I'm commenting. I'm this and that. And the amount LinkedIn is an amazing tool for everybody watching out there. Some people are watching on LinkedIn right now. The amount of unprecedented access that people have is unbelievable. To just seeing, like, if I was a kid or I was in the 90s and I could like look at an Imagineer's profile, find out what people do. Just type in Imagineering and see all these people. Not that Imagineering, there's a lot of people who are Imagineering that are on LinkedIn, but if there were, it's at least a stepping stone into how to find out more information about the industry. So it's an incredible tool that everybody has. And I've a senior vice president that I used to work with, he said, "Hey, I always accept every single LinkedIn request I get." And that always stuck out to me. It's like, look, I don't know who they are. I don't care. I'll accept it. And I've cold messaged executives from Disney and who took me out to lunch after just like, "Hey, I'm, this and that and the other." People are willing to do that. Now things have changed. Now it's more of a virtual Zoom thing. Getting somebody out to lunch is probably the craziest thing that'll ever happen. Trevor's been to Orlando like 3 times in the past 4 months. We haven't gotten together, right? But I will Zoom with you. But trying to get people to go physical is a little challenging. But if you come at it in the right way, and you might be asking yourself, how do I do that, right? Well, just don't ask people for anything. Say, "Hey, thanks for connecting. Love to chat when you have a chance. Love to send questions or love to just chat about your story." The time to do that was over the last 2 years when people were not really busy. Now people are a little bit busier, so it's a little bit more challenging. But anybody can probably do, if you say, "Hey, do you mind chatting for 15, 20 minutes over Zoom?" Most people are a lot of people who are connected are willing to do that. And I know, Trevor, you're networking like crazy right now. But if you kind of send too much information, or I hate business to business emails or LinkedIn messages, I hate them on my profile. "Please do not send me this," and I accept the request. "Hey, I'd love to chat with you about your extended warranty." Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not here to do that. But that's all. That was a bit of a ramble. But the cold call, Trevor, you've had a lot of success with the cold call. It's cold call now. It's digital, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that was how I started with being involved in themed entertainment. Was in 2015 when I left an entertainment job that I had for a few years and wanted to change industries. That I just got on LinkedIn and I added, because at the time I knew nothing. So I was like, Imagineering, that was literally all I knew. So I added the 10 people that were second degree connections from there. And of those, an amount said yes. And then that literally just kept on growing until I added everybody I could. And then that spilled over into, the BZARCs, BRC, Patamas, ThinkWell, that spilled into being able to connect with everybody else. And I literally I did exactly what Patrick's talking about. I got together for coffees, lunches, dinners, drinks with anybody who'd give me the time of day above even just a virtual interaction. And then that gave me, honestly, my whole education on themed entertainment. So aside from networking, I just generally learned a lot from, I feel like every discipline across the industry, but then also top to bottom. Like at the time, Craig Russell was, one of 2 people running WDI, and I got time with him. It was crazy. I could not believe that it worked.
Nice. Very good.
Just to kind of add to that, the power of LinkedIn, which is so powerful, is that make sure we talked about earlier, right? Like getting your resume formatted and get your headline formatted. Some people, and I don't mean to call people out by name, but like if you have some sort of like, "Hey, I'm a whimsical visionary," this in your headline, people are literally going to searches and looking for project managers or looking for producers or looking to that. So try to be specific in your headline as well. And Robin, I'm not sure if you have any way to comment on that, in general, like how do people kind of best practices in building out your headline, and what should you be posting? I have some thoughts, but I don't want to completely dominate every conversation. But how do you kind of, what should your LinkedIn persona be? How would you be on LinkedIn if you were looking for a job right now?
No, I think that's a really great question. And I'm actually interested in hearing your thoughts on that. Um, I feel like, especially being in HR, we are looking for such a variety of people. And so I've seen it work in many ways. Yes, you can be very eclectic or creative in that pitch, in that comment, but honestly, it's not always necessary, right? To have this one liner that's this tag that is the most creative. It's more about the meat that's there for me from an HR perspective, from a hiring perspective. So I'm actually more interested in you as a hiring manager for different roles. What are you looking for when you're looking on LinkedIn profiles, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the interesting thing. It's kind of like, what have you done for us lately? It has to do with, and this is all kind of together with email. Now it's not necessarily your email and your contacts, but you're posting on LinkedIn, and we know there's algorithms with that. But are you adding value? Are you sharing things that are intriguing? I still say that like LinkedIn is the most underutilized platform because people don't know what to do with it. But if you have some sort of point of view and you're sharing information on it, and I find that interesting and intriguing, that's great. And Andy had talked about a little bit about how Jason was posting, celebrating, oh, I can't believe I have this job and things like that. That's great, and others, David Edmonds is kind of posting his thoughts, but like just anything that'll get that you're adding value to people, I think is going to be very helpful with that. And this is what I also want to say is, I've been in a position where I've been looking for different designers for different projects and different things of that nature. And like the people that posted the most of their work on LinkedIn are the people that are top of my mind. That that person is that great. And then I find out that they left the industry. I'm like, well, shoot. But it's like those people who were posting their work. And I think when it comes to people following up, the amount of follow-up that I've received over the last 2 years has been almost like 0% from people who reached out, wanted to talk to me. And it doesn't go unnoticed. The people that were willing to step forward and kind of I was able to work with, whether, it's the Trevor, Charlie's or CJ's and et cetera, all the people on our network who were kind of really willing to get their feet wet. Those are the people I'm first going to say, hey, how can I know how they work. I know how they're doing this. I know how to do that. Versus somebody who said, hey, I really wanted to talk to you. And then I haven't had any updates about what they're up to. I don't know if they're alive. I don't know if they're in the industry. And all that stuff starts to add up. And it can be weird. You don't know, how do I talk about myself? If you send me an email and say, hey, just so you know, I did this cool project. Nobody does that. But if I saw that, I would look at it and go, oh, cool, congratulations. That were an awesome job. I would do that if I was seeking a job right now, no matter what it was. And if you don't have anything to show, start creating things to show. You know what I mean? That's the other part is I've been looking at portfolios and a lot of the stuff is behind kind of the NDA backlog. And it's like, okay, well, get out of your NDA world and start creating stuff for your portfolio. So I don't know, that was kind of like a nonsensical rant, but Robin, what do you think?
No, I think you're kind of onto something. And I agree, even, to kind of continue with what you were saying, even if you don't have your own content, go to someone else's page who has similar content and engage, make a comment, share that post. It doesn't always necessarily have to be your own, but be intentional. At the end of the day, if you're being intentional, even if you don't have anything brand new to share that you just created, go and engage someone who just created something and talk about, what made that cool and what that process was for them. Because you're going to just continue to connect with all those people that are on that person's page as well. So it's going to give you an even broader audience, maybe reach out to some of that person's connections to try to connect with as well. There are ways that you can do that while you may be in a lull for the work that you're doing. So I absolutely agree with what you were saying, Patrick. Again, it's just be intentional, right? If it's something that you really want, do the work to make it happen. Be intentional.
We have a comment here. The industry connections really engage with my LinkedIn post, but DM a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's true. And it's an interesting thing because on LinkedIn, I don't know how often people are checking LinkedIn versus DMs. I mean, I have LinkedIn messages to people offering them work that are unresponded right now. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle that. It's true, Trevor. I know it is. Trevor had a shocked face for those who are listening on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Why? I don't know.
I get if I get an email with a notification of somebody DM me, I'm like, oh, someone DM'd me. Oh, that happens once every year or two.
And one thing that Trevor really touched on that was a really important point. I know we're going on like hour 1 or hour 2 here, but I can talk about this for 3 hours. We're not going to do that, Robinette. We're not going to hold you hostage. Is when my personal career journey is that the first themed entertainment thing I did was the Thea Awards with Andy, and I think 2008, 2009, and that was
11.
the starting. Was it 11? Oh, I'm sorry. What was that, Andy?
Yeah, 11.
Okay, so from then I met people then that I now collaborate with or come across, and so like your networking, like the networking Trevor's doing, the networking I did, the networking Andy does. That's going to be, you never know when that's going to pay off. And I say pay off, but it's not cynical. It's just, you're going to keep it people's mind. You just want to keep on people's minds of, hey, you exist, you're still around. And LinkedIn is a perfect way to do that, is, posting some sort of picture, a comment, and celebrate. It's free to be positive, totally free to be positive.
Yeah. And be careful, right? Because we know there's a lot of information sharing on LinkedIn. And there's no separation these days when it comes to whether you're posting on LinkedIn or some other social media site. Anything that you say, be comfortable with those things following you around, right? So be careful when it comes to certain messages. But you're absolutely right, Patrick. Those connections, you don't know when they're going to pay off, and that's why it's important to continue to engage. It's important to put yourself out there, because when I think of my next opportunity that I think will be great for Trevor, Andy, or Patrick, I'm going to reach out to you guys because of the connections that we've made throughout the industry on LinkedIn. And sometimes someone doesn't even know that they're looking for you, but if you make a comment and they see that, oh, that's right, Trevor's the person who did this, or let me reach out to Trevor. That's happened so many times. Again, it's all about being intentional. I would say that like 1,000 times. So,
I think being authentic too is important. You talk about intention and all that, and I think that it's really important to be yourself and to not approach networking as like nodes of a network necessarily, to like get work and get money, and have a career. But like I think that I've had a lot of success. I'd like to think I have, at least by approaching it and like thinking about networking as like making friends. You're making new friends, and I'd prefer to work with people that I'm friends with rather than just like randos who just look at me as like a number on a spreadsheet.
So true. You can just you can be who you're going to be when you're around those people who you know and trust. So no truer words have ever been spoken.
And especially in the creative field, like, I have to have very, deep, often philosophical discussions about emotions and feelings and, cultural touchstones and things like that with people for my work. Is like, as a composer and music producer, like I'm an emotions interpreter. And if I can't be comfortable and open with the people and the clients that I'm working for, then we can't have those conversations. And then I can't do my job effectively. So like I have to be open and authentic with all of the clients that I work with. And so it's best to start by being friends with these people. And that helps a lot with the work and the relationships.
One of the things, and I said this last week, and it's really funny because Kira, who was on last week, she just texted me about this. What she had texted me was, and sorry, Kira, if you did not want me to say this publicly, but I think that it's a valid point that the balance of bothering people versus the reaching out to them through LinkedIn I'd say LinkedIn would probably be the only way you should do it if it's really just a professional connection. That it's not necessarily a bad thing to do if it is not too frequent, which you kind of got away. But also, as someone at WDI told me back when I first started networking, he's like, if you're going to reach out to people, just make sure that you have something to report, that there has to be some kind of a change. Like, don't hit them up about every single little thing, but maybe it honestly, for me personally, I've experienced that it's depending on the relationship. I have certain people who I hope that they hire me someday, but I have the kind of relationship with them at this point that I can text them and it's okay. And then there's other people where once a quarter, I will send them an email if there's something to report, and I will just give them an update and ask them how they're doing, what the latest is with them, and leave it at that. But I don't think, I don't think every little thing is definitely worth it. I mean, I've gone from when I first was doing the bulk of my LinkedIn networking, where now I've gotten to like 2,500 some connections. That's but I've now it's boiled down to where I have probably a few dozen people that at this point are the ones that I will actively keep up with, or of everybody will be the more frequent of who you keep up with, and then everybody else will be a little more sparse. So there's that. But then even when it comes to, and this is kind of sad, that I feel that it's a little sad, is the idea of being your own marketing machine. That there are times when I'm posting something on LinkedIn that I know that I'm doing it gratuitously, hoping that LinkedIn's algorithms will kick it up and put me in people's feeds. Like I had a day where I posted a screen grab of the screen credit that I got on the Jungle Cruise film. So I was working for the producers on it. Little brag there. But anyway, so I posted this on LinkedIn, and somehow over the course of the next week, it got 10,000 views. And it for some reason that one thing just kicked up, but everything else is you get a couple hundred, and that's it. I don't know what it was about that one. But the idea of I'm going to use hashtags, or I'm going to mention organizations or people. And I've personally found it to feel very self-promoting, gratuitous, and I mean disingenuous. Because it's I just feel like I'm doing it just so that hopefully I stay on people's radar, and it feels wrong.
Well, so let's first off, my highest posting ever was when I announced that I was consulting for Storyline Studio. I got same with you, right? 10,000 views. I think that people want to celebrate other people on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't be so self-conscious about that, because it's just hey, look at this is cool. Or I'm proud to be here. I'm happy to be here. And then I'm sure in that post you showed gratitude to others. I don't remember it. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember exactly what you said. That's kind of what LinkedIn is for. But it's not about congratulating yourself because you went for a walk around the block, but hey, come celebrate, you know what I mean? But that was a real achievement you had. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. In regards to following up, this is the biggest question. Versus somebody following up every month and just saying, hey, how's it going? Versus somebody who doesn't follow up. You want to be the person that's following up every month. I think the crux of the situation goes right back to what Robinette was saying. Read the room. Have the social cues. If somebody responds back to you and says, hey, just kind of worked on this cool little or saw this article, thought of you, and they don't reply, probably not a great lead. If somebody says, oh, hey, thanks for sharing, hope all's well, that's probably a good lead to nurture. So you just have to be mindful of that. Like I said, the amount of follow-up I've had over the past 2 years from people, almost zero. I don't know why. I can't speak to it. I would love to have people banging on my door every other day saying, hey, I'd love to chat with you. And I have a few people that want to chat, but mostly it's business development thing and things like that. And I'm just I don't have time for that. So I don't know where all the people are. It could be hard. They don't want to be turned down, but I'd rather, it's always a no unless you ask, Trevor. So every month is pretty frequent. Every quarter, like you're doing with an update, that's great. No, I'm never going to look at somebody. I mean, it's kind of funny, even embarrassingly, sometimes I'll not need, I want to reach out to somebody. I'm oh, I left you unread from 2 years ago. I'm sorry. How are you doing? Nice to talk to you.
I'm good to you that I've done that.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Look, and I kind of want to piggyback, Trevor. I completely understand. You don't want to ever be disingenuous, right, with the things that you're posting. But Patrick is right. That's literally what LinkedIn is for. So it's okay to pat yourself on the back. I don't think it was unauthentic when you posted it, and that's great that it got picked up by 10,000 views. If you're not doing that every single day or every third, man, I see some people that post something that is click worthy or clickbait itself every like hour sometimes. I'm like, that's exhausting. I don't know what you're doing that you get to do that all day long. But I don't think you should be as self-conscious about that. It's okay to be intentional in getting your accomplishments out for the world to see. So please continue to do that. I'm telling you, that information is impactful, and that's how you continue to grow your network. Please keep doing that. What's most annoying is what Patrick was also talking about earlier when he mentioned a lot of those business to business. My message board, my DMs are flooded with those. As a hiring manager, as a director of HR, I'm not playing. I probably get 10 to 15 per day. So if somebody has sent me a message and I didn't even see the message, a follow-up on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis will trigger me. Oh, you reached out to me. So I may not have responded because I have 10 to 15 additional business to business messages in my inbox on a daily basis. So sometimes that silence isn't intentional towards you as someone that's looking for work. It's simply we missed it because we're being flooded with 1,000 different messages that are useless to us. So continue to do that as well. That is going to help anyone that's out there looking right now. And I think a monthly cadence is okay, but like we talked about already, read the room. If you're never getting a response and you've sent 3 messages, in the 3-month time frame, maybe that's not the avenue for you. And that's okay. Find a different horse and go ride that one. So yeah, just keep all of that in mind. Just some suggestions from someone who is flooded on a daily basis with nonsensical messages from recruiters and all types of people all day long trying to sell me. So
since we're settling comfortably in social media, just interaction, I mean, aside from LinkedIn, I think that talking also about Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are definitely things to pull into the dialogue before getting solidly in that area. The little bit of things that I feel like is actual fact that at least I can contribute in here is not that I've not done this, which is, now that I've said as a disclaimer, you're not going to believe me, but using industry mixers and events and LinkedIn for dating, don't do it. Everybody, don't do it. That's like the number 2 thing to know after control yourself when you're at, events and drinking and that.
It's so gross.
Throwing it out there.
It is so gross. Like it's just gross. Don't do it. That's all I'm gonna say to you.
Read the room. Read the room.
Read the room.
The old colloquialism, don't shit where you eat.
Thank you. Scream it.
I mean, it is. I'd say that reading the room is very important, and also you're going to make friendships with people, and you're going to there is something to grabbing arms and saying, hey, we're all in this together. We're all growing up with these people. But these people will be with the industry for the rest of your career, which is even also important of making sure that you're mindful of that. But there's been marriages that are born out of this industry too, right? So, but it's always just good advice to keep it together. Trevor, what do we have next? Social media.
Yeah. So definitely tying in, the Instagram and the Twitter and all that. So this is going to be anything covering just, general, like people, posting their vacation pictures, industry news, but then also, especially this past week, politics. Things that I feel like, when it comes to something specifically like the abortion debate, I feel like, the vast majority of our industry kind of thinks along the same lines. But then there are topics that, even within this industry, people don't. So what are like tips and guidelines for kind of being cognizant of what to post, how to post, how much somebody might post, before launching into that, even just like for myself, these last 6 months that I've been going about my own intentional job search, operating out of Chicago, I've been traveling back to Los Angeles and down to Anaheim for industry events to meet people. The things that I tend to post most on something like Instagram are, aside from those events, while I'm there for, a few days, I'll end up, having a day trip with a friend who's a cast member, and we get signed into the parks, and we're just kind of having, a day off and relaxing. And I feel like, well, I shouldn't say I feel, I know I've had some feedback from people where they feel like, oh, you're just living your best life. You're just like flying around the country and going to theme parks and just having cocktails and stuff. Things must be really good. And I'm like, well, actually, no, that was just my day off. I'm in town to meet people in order to hopefully, make some solid connections and gain employment out of that. So I've had to kind of do some retcon work on that, like to the point that I actually had to post. I felt like I had to post something that was basically a disclaimer for people about my life right now.
Because perception is reality.
So much. Yeah.
And I, just to comment on that, I had a friend, and I've been through stretches of unemployment, and like, yeah, you go and you try to enjoy your life a little bit, and then people are like, hey, why are you? I thought you were unemployed. Why are you at Disneyland? It's like, well, because I'm trying to stay sane. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do that. So Robinette, social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hot topic. Lots to unpack there.
It is.
I'll just kind of tell a story. I was when the January 6th insurrection happened. I was disgusted by how many people were not commenting on it on social media, which is to say, I thought that like storming the Capitol would be something that universally people would be pretty upset about. And just people in the industry with, big Twitter following. I mean, I'm mostly active on Twitter when in the industry, like no commentary. And LinkedIn, okay, LinkedIn's LinkedIn. That's not really a place to do it. But Twitter, like you'd think they'd be like, hey, not cool. But no. And I'm like, why even bother having a platform? So I went through a whole thing about that and being really pissed.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to what happened and the violence against women on Friday, I'm just in a state of shock. I don't even know how to react to that situation. I'm still kind of unpacking it, and a lot of people out there are feeling helpless. And that's a whole 3-hour discussion that we're probably not qualified to have. But how, in regards to employment and the idea that, that hiring manager, maybe they're happy on Friday, or maybe they're this, or maybe they're that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really murky, dark, crazy water where, the marketing, like you want to be your authentic self, but also you're trying to get a job,
Yeah.
How do you manage that, Robinette?
Look, there's no
Solve
separation.
world problems.
No, I know, right? Let's do it. No, there's no separation, and we kind of talked about that very briefly earlier. So first, know that anything that you're posting, sharing, commenting on is visible for anybody to see, and you need to live in a reality world where you are comfortable with whatever that's going to, however that could or could not affect you. So let's just be real about that. I can't speak for every hiring manager or every person in HR. I do want people to be their most authentic selves. I like to see who you are outside of LinkedIn. And so we navigate on candidates' pages on a regular basis if they're public pages for people to see. Because we want to know who the people are that we're hiring. We never ever use it as a mode to necessarily say a hard no for a candidate, but we do consider those things, and we're all people, so we're flawed and not perfect when it comes to those things. So just know that going into it, be careful and know that there could be a result to something that you're posting. But the advice that I always give people is, I am very active socially. And so I will comment. I will not engage negatively or in like a Twitter battle with someone. I won't go back and forth with them. So I encourage people to do what I do, right? Which is state the facts, make whatever comment I'm going to make, never insult, because if you are engaged in healthy debate with someone, to me, that's a plus. We can go back and forth here at work about something that we need to debate, and maybe you have a better solution than I do on that thing. So to me, that kind of shows me the type of person that you're going to be.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, name calling and doing a lot of the things that people instantly jump into, where they're completely discrediting someone simply because they have an opposing opinion, it's not okay. And to me, that's the sign of someone who has no empathy and absolutely no awareness. They can't read the room, so they have no emotional intelligence. And so those are the things that we're looking for from a company perspective. Do you have emotional intelligence? Can you engage with someone who views life or the world differently than you do? To me, that's a plus. I don't need you to agree with everything that I do, or that I say, or that I believe. I need to know that you have the ability to be who you are, and that you have your own values and morals, and you're willing to stand behind them, but still be open to other possibilities. So be careful, is what I'm going to say. Be careful.
It's an interesting thing you pointed out, is that I like to debate, and I like that whole philosophy. But I never go into the fallacies. There's several different ways of name calling or discrediting the person, or and because to me it's like, okay, that's not a debate anymore. Like, let's debate the facts and the facts. So very interesting that you pointed that out, that you would actually look at that and say, oh, this is somebody who can maybe think critically and be a value add to the company. So with that, there's probably a spectrum of ways that people can communicate themselves. I'll just kind of get, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think I don't want to do the both sides, but yeah, there's radical, there can be potential people on both sides that are mean-spirited, and I don't think anybody really wants to be working with that. Now, I don't want to discredit the fact that we're going through some really tough stuff right now. That's an understatement. But I've been made privy to people who are prominent and who have said posts that were what I would agree with, that were vitriolic, that turned people off.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes to a point of, well, you're turning people off, but you may also be turning people on because they see that, and then that grabs attention. So it's honestly like, who knows? I don't know. I post this, I post that. You got to be yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it is. And if yourself is, to your point, I think you have really important feedback. If you're attacking people, personally attacking people, no, nobody should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to look at politics back in my naive days of like, look, people all have the same idea of being good-natured people. It's just we have different ways of getting to that conclusion, and different philosophies on how to get there and who should be doing what to get there. Now it's a lot grayer, and the stakes are higher than they've ever been in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's all of our lifetimes. We're all kind of in the same that bracket. So, it's kind of a crapshoot. I would say if you post something and it draws attention, you're probably attracting people. Maybe you're putting people off, but maybe you're putting those people off that you wouldn't want to work with anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if you're a kind person, and I consider myself a humanist and just loving and accepting and treating everyone with kindness. Maybe that can bear out in the political field. What do you think, Robinette?
I mean, exactly what I said earlier. You just have to be comfortable with whatever that impact of whatever you're posting is going to be. And it's okay to be there. Like, it's really okay. I am very comfortable with my morals, my values, the things that I stand for. And I'm vocal about those things. I'm pretty loud about those things. I'm unapologetically Black, right? And I'm going to always celebrate that. That doesn't mean I'm discrediting anybody else for who they are. It simply means that I'm unapologetically Black, and I'm going to shout it to the roof. And so that's not a negative thing, but that's going to turn some people away because of how they feel. So I'm not going to take their baggage and put it on my shoulders with my posts. I'm going to put my posts out there. If it draws attention, it draws attention. If there's an impact, I'm okay with what that impact is going to be. So you have to be okay with that, whether that's something that is negative or positive for yourself. And so you need to live in the reality of what that means for yourself and just keep it moving. That's all you can do.
Well, I'm over here like I gotta make sure I'm following you on social media to get all these posts that you're posting.
Unfortunately, I'm also a mom first, so I don't post as frequently as I like. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty vocal.
Right on. Well, as we're hitting an hour and a half here, and I feel like we could go on forever, but let's wrap this up. So I feel like I mean, I definitely got a lot of good notes out here. I like that some of the recurring things that we talked about were about emotional intelligence, just reading the room, being self-aware. I think that the idea of taking kind of like a self-assessment, a self-inventory, and deciding like what are the things about yourself that you want to be known for are definitely great ways to kind of have guideposts on an individual by individual basis of how you network, how you interact with people in person, virtually, how you go about your social media. I know that I have my own guidelines about even like privacy settings on different platforms, in addition to the type of content that I post. You know, is this going to be posted as an Instagram story, or will this be an Instagram post, or so on and so forth? Just gave me a lot to think about. And again, we could keep on going, but we should not. Robin, thank you so much for coming. This is awesome. Thank you for joining us, for taking the time to lend all your wisdom and advice and expertise. And I'm also going to be following you on all the platforms.
Thank you so much for the invite. I have enjoyed our conversation, and I'm serious. Invite me again. You know, my schedule sometimes is hard to get on, but I love doing this. I love talking to people and reaching people right where they are and meeting them right where they are to help in any way I can. So thank you for the invite.
No, I've certainly learned a lot, you know, especially that I should probably be more active on LinkedIn.
Well, and also it's like I say all this advice, then I'm like, wait, when was the last time I posted on LinkedIn? So yeah, it's a process, right? It's a process.
Yeah, my LinkedIn is very bare. I should probably rebuild that, and rather than linking to some PDF Dropbox address, I should probably maybe have it be a little bit more user friendly.
You're doing amazing, sweetie. No, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile right now. You are a full-service musical sound and production, media production. Is that
We'll do another show with a case study of Andy's social media presence.
That'd be great. And then Robinette could come on and help me with my resume too.
I got you.
We have a lot of connections.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely brilliant. Well, and in case folks out there don't know, we do also do the audio podcast version of our show here. So be looking out for that. I believe we have Wednesdays those episodes drop on all the usual platforms. But otherwise, yeah, this was great. Everybody just hang around for a minute as we wrap up here. But otherwise,
let me ask. Sorry, I worked for President Biden and other campaigns, and I wanted to highlight that experience, but I always hold back because I feel like it might cost me a job. Any advice, Robinette? Any advice on that? I hate to leave it hanging. I didn't see that until now.
No, I hate that we didn't be unapologetic about the work that you've done.
Yeah.
Exactly what we said before. If you're turning people off, those are people that you want to turn off. Be unapologetic about the work that you've done, Teddy.
There we go. All right. Sorry, back to you, Trevor. I just saw that question.
One more time with feeling. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Trevor.
Bye, everybody.